I think Kevin wants to be like Oprah during this as well and give away swag the whole time. So everyone better be ready. Look under your seat at the end of the presentation. Yeah, everyone gets a car. Sponsored by Harmony. Yeah, same thing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Nice. Oh, you right. Excellent. So, hello everyone. Hello Kevin.
Hey.
Today, I think like the overarching theme of the presentation is sort of like GTC, what went well and what didn't.
Yeah, well, GTC and Saks. What went well,
Saks.
what didn't.
No, but I don't have any bags of Saks, so we're going to talk about that a lot less.
Okay, that works.
Well, and like wanted to start off, I think, by like, thinking through that whole journey of like where Gitcoin's been, and starting in like halfway through 2017, right? It's like
Yep.
yeah,
Just about, yeah.
But like at like peak, like everyone wants to talk about tokens, and everyone launches a token, everyone launches a coin, and then you're like, okay, we're gonna make a project called Gitcoin, but there's not gonna be a coin. Do you want to like walk through like why not? I guess at the starting point.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So Gitcoin, basically our mission from the start has been to grow and sustain open source software. It has later evolved into more narratives around public goods, of which open source software is a type of public good. And basically in 2017, I invested some of my gains from the bull market back then in creating a brand identity and a launch video, and built the software pretty much myself and launched it and no one used it, which was depressing, but I also was just kind of very, very focused on figuring out a way to make it useful to people to find that product market fit. And so a lot of going to meetups and talking to people, and then eventually getting the funding by Consensus and Joe was a major milestone. Went from like begging my friends in Colorado to use Gitcoin to all of a sudden had an inroad to like Truffle and MetaMask and all these different Consensus projects, which definitely was an opportunity to find product market fit. And eventually we evolved past bounties and are now doing grants and are a DAO, and we have the Moonshot Collective. So
you're going too fast. You're going too fast.
Yeah.
So, so starting off, and like, what was that grants volume like when it was first kicked off? Like, what was like the first couple of grants round? Like, how much was going through it?
Yeah, I mean, we started off with $25,000 rounds in January of 2019. And now we're up to almost $1 million in grants round 11 right now.
Which is still ongoing right now, right?
Still ongoing right now. Go to gitcoin.co/grants and fund
Give
your
people
public
money.
goods.
Yeah. And so sort of like, the beginning days, very grassroots, you're like going to meetups, then that Consensus journey of like getting onboarded there. Then there was sort of a period of like market goes down forever. And that was really, I feel...
Forever.
Well, it felt like forever. Yeah. And that was really, I think, like for me, when I was like, it's like double down or nothing, right? It's sort of like, well, we can all either give up and walk away, or we can sort of like all focus on how we, like fund public goods and like drive that stuff forward. So like, I guess next in that journey, like how was being someone not focused on like number go up, someone focused on like public goods go up during the time where like number went down?
Yeah, well, I mean, the one saving grace of Gitcoin is that I think that we have a mission that people believe in, and we actually, we're the pilot light. I think in a lot, well, I would like to hope that we were one of the pilot lights in the Ethereum ecosystem funding projects through the bear market. I have so many Gitcoin alumni, Uniswap, Yearn, 1inch Exchange, David Hoffman and Bankless, ETHUB, all were kind of using Gitcoin grants to stay alive during that bear market. And so really proud that we supported the community through that bear market, and I hope to be the pilot light of whatever happens in the next cycle as well.
No, it's not going to go down. It's only going to go up now.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Is there a meme for that?
Only up? Up only?
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe we can be on up only after this. They'll see this podcast. They'll be like, oh, wow.
I think I might be over the age cutoff. You're hip enough in the to be honest. We'll see.
Maybe. Okay, and so, sort of then, number goes down, and actually, like, you keep the lights on for a lot of, like, the public goods universe, and, the Ethereum universe sort of during that time.
Yeah.
Then sort of, like, coming into number go up mode again, sort of like 2019, 2020, whatever.
Yeah.
Then the decision, I guess, internally is made quite a long time ago to like, okay, what would a token look like? And what would decentralized governance look like? What was like the decision that like, basically on you, right? I mean, maybe there was like pressure from other organizations and everything else, but like that's your decision. And like, what was the 0 and 1 going from like the meme of no, there will never be a token to like, Or maybe there will be a token.
Yeah, well, I got to say that the first thing is just to survive, and I'm extremely thankful to Joe Lubin and Consensus for always having unwavering faith in me through what felt like dozens of rounds of restructurings at Consensus, and so surviving was number one. And then the real question was, what does Gitcoin want to be when it grows up? And you know, launching a token is sort of downstream from that, as are many other things. And we decided that we wanted to be in a project that was independent of Consensus. And the highest order bit for me was to be governed by the community that we served. I have been playing the VC Web 2 game for about 12 years, and I know that I've been in the situation in which I've had investors who have wanted me to, as the management team, to extract from the users. And it didn't feel good, it didn't feel community oriented. And so I think that the way that we wanted to design Gitcoin was to have the community that we served govern the platform, which creates a closed loop of hopefully value and growth and energy. And I'm super proud that we didn't do a launch of a token in 2017 because no one knew what tokens were good for at that point. And we didn't have any governance problems back then. Like, fast forward to 2021, there's $5 million of funding for open source developers going through the platform. We have like governance problems coming out of the ears. And so the governance token kind of helps with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that makes sense. And I guess like, it's interesting thinking about that journey from, you know, no token to token, and then that sort of decentralization where Ethereum is sort of, every part of Ethereum should be decentralized by nature, right? And actually like, I think it's really interesting, you know, a comparative project, you know, like OpenSea and all the drama they're going through at the moment, we're actually like, you know, if you are part of the ecosystem, and more important, you know, maybe you're taking a fee and that's one thing, but if you're part of the culture, right? Like if you're part of the culture of Ethereum at a fundamental level, like my view of the future is that you sort of must have a token if you want to survive. And so I think like, I don't know, interesting point to like riff on.
Yeah.
Like, did you feel that or like?
Yeah, well, I'm dogmatically pragmatic, so which might sound like an oxymoron, but I don't believe that everything needs to have a token. I don't believe that everything needs to be decentralized. I believe that common infrastructure that needs to remain credibly neutral needs to be decentralized. And Gitcoin's trying to build public goods funding for the world, and having that be credibly neutral and governed by the community that it serves makes sense for a token. And you know, I think there's other projects that it's fine if they're centralized. They just shouldn't be part of our digital infrastructure, probably. Sorry, what was your question?
It wasn't really a question. It wasn't a question. Does everything need a token?
Yeah, I don't think so. That sounds like hell to me, actually.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of think that like if it has equity, then it shouldn't have equity and it should have a token. It's basically, because like otherwise, at some point it becomes rent extracty. You know?
Yeah, I think, well, so one of the things that I believe, and it's because I'm like, you know, the Boulder community guy, I actually started the Boulder blockchain meetup, and my co-organizers, Michael and Kevin, are back there.
Woo.
Up, yeah. Yeah, and so, you know, the community, like, I think local communities are really great because when you have cycles of value that are, you know, you make money and you spend money in your local community, that's a really virtuous cycle because everyone's living in the community and no one's trying to externalize harm. Like, you know, the canonical example is like a businessman who wants to dump their toxic sludge in the river. And like the community would develop antibodies to that because we have millions of years of evolution of living in local human communities. What's new to me is web scale organizations, and specifically these organizations in New York and Silicon Valley that are in all these markets where they have always a incentive to externalize because they don't live, their family, their kids when they go home are not in those communities, and so they'll always be incentivized to externalize. And so one of my sort of hopes is that we're going to see more and more of these closed loops that resemble local communities in that there's no incentive to externalize because we all are in the community that we served, and there's like a virtuous cycle. So again, I forgot your question, but that's
no, I mean, I think you answered it. That was the answer of everything needs a token to make a virtuous cycle. So I'm taking that as like a W, like giant win. Everything needs a token.
Yeah,
because I think,
for sure.
and that definitely, like I think was, you know, another question about sort of like when that decision to make a token happen. But you know, I think like that was certainly using the product a bunch, and like I think like round 2 was when I started contributing to grants.
Yeah.
And you know, like through that whole journey, and actually compared to a lot of other things, there wasn't like a moment of like this needs a token or I'm going to stop using it, sort of because of what it is. But then on the flip side of that, I think it's actually the reason that you want that is to build more, right? Like it is what it is. and what you and the team have built, and consensus and everyone, but actually looking at what that product is or what that community is, how can we build on top of that? Not like 30% better, but like 30 times better. And I think that's really what.
Totally.
Unlike a lot of other projects where the reason you need a token is because it's too centralized or bad, versus in this case, I think it's more about by having a token, we can actually multiply this and make it exponential.
Totally, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that basically I view us as a little bit pioneers in using Ethereum for public goods. And what I would really like to see is like copy what we're doing with quadratic funding and expand it out. Like we're open source. I'm an open source maximalist, and I believe that open source software is a fundamental good for the world, and it's a public good. $500 billion per year in economic value is created by open source software, and people who are working on it just have to work nights and weekends away from their family unpaid because there's no business model for it. That's effed up. And so like copy what we're doing and take what we're doing for open source software and bring it to journalism and like privacy preservation. Lobby DAOs are obviously a thing. Clean air, clean water, just like copy what we're doing. And one of the things that we're trying to do is, the initial product had some assumptions that I think were wrong-footed, and it's kind of centralized, and so we're actually rewriting the product top to bottom to be decentralized and to be an open protocol that anyone can fork and just like use our software product. And what I really want to do is build these like well-documented APIs for how the product works, and then let 1,000 experiments blossom on top of those platforms. I have access to so many developers because Gitcoin, and like I just point them at the API and what we want to do, and we can create this like fractal innovation and coordination technology that will hopefully expand outwards into the world. So that's kind of how I see the product suite evolving.
Yeah, and makes sense. And I think that, it is a really interesting differentiation between needing a token because you're centralized because people don't like that, and, wanting or needing a token because you can actually build a more decentralized stack, innovate more, do more creative.
Yeah, and there's this kind of gets into the GTC launch, which FireEye's FireEye's and Delphi Digital helped advise on the token launch and couldn't have done it without you. So thank you so much, James. Yeah. But one of the things that we've wanted to do from the start is have actual use cases for the token that would make the system even better. And so one of the problems that we have right now with Gitcoin grants is that it's based on quadratic funding, and basically the match multiple for each grant is based off of the number of contributors that contribute to it instead of the depth of contributors. So if grant A has $10 from one contributor and grant B has $10 from 10 contributors, grant B gets way more of the matching pool, and we run these matching pools every quarter. And so I'm building up to like the problem here, which is basically there's a horse race in the first 12 hours of every round where people are trying to get the most contributors in the first 12 hours so that they can climb the rank, get the higher matching multiple, and it becomes this like rich get richer kind of thing where the higher the matcher multiple is, the more people will contribute to you, the higher the matching multiple is. And so one of the things that we're thinking about doing with the token is like making the initial sort for the first 3 days of the round based off of like how many people are staking their GTC on this grant to make it climb higher in the rankings, which sets the initial conditions not into this horse race, but into the initial conditions of the sorting would be based off of the quality of each grant according to the staking game that we design. And that seems like the token is legitimately making the entire system better. And we brainstormed all these beautiful visions, and then it came time to launch and we didn't have any of the developer cycles to build them. Yeah. So hopefully that's something the DAO will organize at some point in the next several months.
100%. And I think the other thing like on that was sort of this idea of like identity, right? I don't know if you want to speak to that at all, but like sort of how to build it, which is, what's the, I forgot the name of it, the thing that you use at the moment to like signal on different people?
Quadratic funding depends on this problem in a decentralized identity called Sybil resistance, which is basically like if you can make up a bunch of identities and launder your $10 through 10 identities, then the bad grant gets the funding. And we rely on Bright ID, who just launched a token today, good for them, for Sybil resistance, Proof of Humanity, Idena, and several other decentralized identity protocols to build up Sybil resistance.
But so isn't there something recently that you guys sort of launched where like you can go onto Gitcoin and like click on an individual profile and like give them a point?
Yeah, that's something that we've been experimenting with, but it's kind of like on the down low and hasn't found
it's on
product market
Twitter
fit yet.
It's not that down low.
Yeah.
Explain the concept.
Yeah, so basically the idea is that you could go and take your GTC. So I described a use case where you could take your GTC and stake on a grant. This is an example where you stake on other people. Like I've met James Waugh, I know he's not a Sybil attacker, I'll stake 10 GTC on you, which then changes the crypto game mechanism of the system to just create more Sybil resistance. So that's another example of where the GTC token.
And then does that mean that like if I run away and scam people that like you lose your
there would
GTC?
be like a Claro-based slashing mechanism where if you rug everyone, then you basically rug everyone who staked on you. So
Okay.
you burn that rep.
So I should get you to stake heaps of GTC, and then I can basically burn the GTC supply by. Where does the GTC go if I run away?
To public goods, obviously.
Oh, that makes sense.
Duh.
That's the answer to everything.
Yep.
So then sort of thinking about like that on-ramp and making the decision to launch a token and wanting to push forward on that, then it's obviously about starting that journey, right? Like how long would you say from like, okay, we're going to do this to like, I can claim my tokens? Like is it like 2 weeks?
Yeah, I'd say that there was from January 2019 when the restructurings at Consensus started until May of 2021 was like really the long journey of like trying to figure out what we wanted to be when we grow up. But the design of the token distribution center, which we called the Quadratic Lands for the memes, took about 9 months, and I think we engaged you about 6 months before the token launch.
Yeah, and that like quadratic lands is definitely something I want to touch on. So like for those that like hopefully, okay, hands up if you've like used quadratic lands. That's pretty good. It's like a 30-40% ratio. Yeah, see this is like, congratulations, you've used it. Oh, I thought you were going to give people t-shirts.
Yeah, it might look familiar.
Oh yeah. So like quadratic lands was basically something where as you went through and you had you got a retroactive airdrop of GTC, quadratic lands was the way that you claimed it. And so you went through and you watched a video about what Gitcoin was, and then you answered a survey on sort of like what Gitcoin was, you know, basically proving out like, do you give a shit, you know, is this important, you know, should you be able to claim your tokens? And then you sort of went through and delegated your tokens as you claimed them. So sort of like you saw how many tokens you had, and then it said, who do you want to delegate these tokens to? And that combination of the day one delegation and sort of having like a claim portal, where before that, like 90% of airdrops are literally like there's a notification in the top right being like, claim your airdrop, which is okay, but it's not really engaging the community in any meaningful way. And certainly like Uniswap and others suffered from that afterwards, right? Like sort of that people like claimed it as a financial mechanism and nothing more. But actually like quadratic lands disrupted that massively. I don't know if you want to like speak to that at all. Like,
yeah, well, first off, Quadratic Lands is a meme more than anything.
Very important.
It's a place where, powered by quadratic funding and other public goods mechanisms, we can all quit our corporate jobs and go work for the public good. That's the Quadratic Lands.
Woo.
That's the meme. It's a vaporwave meme if you ever want to extend it yourselves, everyone. And basically, in this future, we believe that we need the consent of the governed, which is the only legitimate basis for governance. And one of the things that I'm super proud that we did in the Quadratic Lands, the actual, we could have called the thing the Token Distribution Center, which would have been
way
so
worse.
boring.
Yeah.
In the Quadratic Lands, one of the things we wanted to do was make you delegate your token voting to someone in the community that you trusted. Because we know that all of you love governance tokens, but you hate reading about governance and participating in governance. And just recognizing that fact that we're all busy and you all don't have time to check the Gitcoin governance forums every week. And so what we did was there's 18,000 holders of GTC, and this is a governance token, and we recognize that 95% of you are not going to actually use it for governance. So why not delegate it to a group of people who are highly informed that can have the consent of the governed and can make decisions on your behalf? And you know, if they make a bad decision, you can revoke your delegation to them. And the thing that I think that we really did, like all of this stuff is built on the shoulders of giants. Compound invented the delegation mechanism that we used, and we're a fork of Compound. Uniswap took delegation in tokens and did a retroactive airdrop, and we did a retroactive airdrop. And our, like, standing on the shoulders of giants, our small innovation was making everyone delegate when they got their tokens, which is when we had the captive audience. And now we have 100% of the consent of the governed because everyone who got the airdrop is now a participant in governance through delegation. And so I'm pretty proud of that as I think that's liquid democracy is what we put into practice there. And you see the starting conditions of Gitcoin DAO have been set in this direction of legitimacy, I think, from the start. I wanted to have quadratic voting in there too, but you can't have everything you want. So the liquid democracy was a good start.
Yeah, yeah, and I think like that. So like touching in on that, you know, like the talk I think said like GTC, what went well and what didn't, right? And so like I want to like, you know, thinking about those delegates, I think it's been interesting where on day one and sort of like recruiting a bunch of people and getting them, you know, so to be one of those initial delegates, you basically posted on the Gitcoin forum first saying, hey, you know, this is why I'm amazing, this is why I'm great, this is why I should be a delegate. And thinking about that sort of initial engagement and how that went down to then like how either voter turnout or participation or these types of things, like has it been one-to-one, you know, everyone's been amazing? Has it like only 5% of people have been, you know, good? Like how well have the delegates performed, do you think?
I think that they're my boss and they should tell me how I'm performing. I should, as the as the founder of Gitcoin and arguably, you know, like the central intermediary in the past, like the whole point of decentralized governance is that the token holders should elect them and they should tell me what I'm doing.
Okay, Austin, how is Kevin doing? See, it's fine.
There you go. I mean, I think, you know, as long as people are engaged and they're acting in a mission-first way and, you know, they're helping extend the decentralization of Gitcoin and the impact that Gitcoin's having, then generally I think that's great. Let's go vibe and figure out how to do that more.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing that sort of like that delegation brought was like the work streams, right? And like basically alongside of Gitcoin launching, there was also, well, there were sort of, some of them existed before as well, right? But sort of they were pushed to front and center was this idea of a work stream, which is basically like a working group inside of the DAO where a bunch of people focus on a given outcome. So like there's like Sybil resistance and there's like the decentralization of Gitcoin and then another 3, which you might remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I might. So the work streams are basically like the vessel through which work gets done within the Gitcoin DAO, and basically what it is a group of people in a Discord channel that have sometimes an approved allocation of GTC from governance, and they're working on things like fraud detection. They are working on things like increasing the amount of public goods funding in the treasury. They're working on things like coordinating the stewards. And I'm a technologist at heart, and so the ones that I'm most excited about are the decentralized Gitcoin workstream, which is taking Gitcoin grants and has a demoable version of Gitcoin grants, which is hosted on IPFS and based on smart contracts and has no me as the intermediary, which is awesome. And then the Moonshot Collective, which is basically just the rapid prototyping workstream of the Gitcoin DAO.
And that's what sent everyone tokens yesterday, right? Everyone has free money?
Yeah, so we did a tip dot party with the Moonshot Collective yesterday, and y'all got, oh man, I was so proud that so we basically prototyped this tool where you go to tip dot party, you enter in a secret word, and then we just drop you a bunch of tokens. And Austin, I think, dropped GTC, Uni, DAO House tokens, Work, Spork, and maybe one other token.
Robot.
Yeah, Robot to everyone who was in the audience at MCon. So this is a very lightweight coordination tool that we built within 6 weeks in the Moonshot Collective.
It's like $100, right? Like how much, basically? Yeah.
I know Austin's the one who did it.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
But so anyway, the point of that is we're building so the Moonshot Collective is prototyping tools that are going to be used for token allocation to reward the Moonshot Collective for building allocation tools. So there's like a level of like the loop is working there. And basically, the thing that we wanted to do was engage people who are showing up to the Moonshot Collective calls with token distributions, and then also just prototyping new ways of rewarding people for being engaged in the DAO is kind of what's on our roadmap in the meantime. And so Tip Dot Party is just the first example. We built it in like 6 weeks. It was so fast, and I think that's owed to the amount of coordination and the talent of the people involved in the DAO. We've got 100 developers that are working on building coordination tools in the DAO, and I just think that amount of scale and the fact that it came together in 6 weeks is massive.
And so I want to touch in on that with the 100 developers, because there was a question yesterday from one of the Gitcoin associates in the other room about like, one of the like questions of like these work streams is that like as someone from the outside, you know, if I'm like, I really like DAOs, I really like Gitcoin, I want to get involved in a work stream, is it actually, a lot of them are flying so fast and doing so many things, they're like, how do you get involved in that? You know, like, and what do you see as like, I guess the solutions or the challenges that like a lot of those people are going to face as, you know, we continue to expand from 100 to 1,000 to 100,000 and making sure that, you know, we want to be able to run really fast, but also like be, you know, sort of like inclusive of new ideas or new thoughts.
Totally. Those are some really hard design constraints, and I think that Gitcoin is really good at being deep Ethereum lore. That if you've been around since 2017, you'll probably know, some of the memes in the Moloch and the public goods are good, and we have these deep wells of value in the Moonshot Collective and decentralized Gitcoin and the MMM work stream, and like right now we're just building a better onboarding funnel so that people can find those and so, I'm happy to say that there's really talented people working on coordinating that, and hopefully we're going to create really great onboarding so that people can find. So basically, like, most people I think that I talk to in this space believe in the mission of Gitcoin, but they don't know how to get impacted with it. And like the KPI is like how many people give a crud versus how many people are actually working to help advance the mission, and that's the KPI we have to tune in our onboarding funnel. So I'm kind of looking to like FireEyes and FWB and all you Gen Z hipsters to show me what to put into my.
Yeah, I definitely identify as a Gen Z hipster.
Well, I'm looking at you, so.
It's just a look. No, that makes sense. And I think I mean,
it's a way of life, James.
Yes, it's true. It's a way of life. And I think, like from my perspective, and I'm really shocked that this hasn't happened as much yet, but like I want to see like hundreds of thousands, like millions of dollars, like go to the people that are coordinating this. Like I think obviously, we're giving out, how long do we have?
A minute and a half.
Okay, 2 minutes, nice. Okay, like I want to see. I'm really excited about like how do we do rewards, but not like if you submit a proposal, you get a small little emoji on your Discord channel, but like have 50 grand. Like congrats, successful proposal. And I've been like FireEyes have been pushing for this from like a number of projects, and I think it's really easy to look at a treasury and be like, oh man, like this is a lot of money, but like we still need to be really careful with it and really conscious of how we spend it. I'm kind of like YOLO, like just give it out to everyone in massive amounts, and like imagine, we say you get 50K in GTC. If you submit a correct proposal, I think a lot of people are going to be lining up to do it. And I think when we think about economic incentives, we've been pouring billions of dollars into liquidity incentives, although Gitcoin hasn't because the community is naturally there. But the wider ecosystem has been pouring billions of dollars into liquidity. I think we should be pouring billions of dollars into like coordination and decentralization.
I like that. Before we end, I would like to shill really quick that Austin and I are giving away a golden keyboard. Looks rare, right, everyone? I gave, at ETH Denver 2020, I gave Austin the keyboard that I used to build the Gitcoin prototype with. Clacky. You still got Clacky. He's got a good home, right? Oh, sounds legit. And so basically we're looking to extend this lineage by giving it to someone who represents the ethos of a community-first mindset here at MetaCon. So if you tweet with the MCon 2021 hashtag who you think really has the ethos of the community, then that's the way that you enter the contest. And Austin and I will be giving away the third keyboard at
Can
that
I like
time.
tweet at myself and be like, James at MetaCon?
You can nominate yourself.
Nice.
If you want to be that guy, you can nominate yourself. But I want to end with something you said, which is instead of putting billions of dollars in liquidity mining, let's put billions of dollars into coordination. I love that.
Yep.
That's my ending spot.
That will be the Ponzi that we will build.
Oh yeah, and one last thing, I have a ton of swag to give away. It's neon, it's hipster, it's quadratic Landsy, and my wife wants it out of my house. So please take some swag from me.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.